Hey guys, it's Piano Man Steve here, and I want to talk to you today about the transposition function on your keyboard. Now, some of you will say, haven't I seen a video about using the transposition function? Yes, you have. That was called the effective use of the transposition function, and I actually even have it linked down here in the description. And this is kind of a companion video to this. That video talked about how to do it well, you know, like how to choose how far to transpose yourself and whatnot. I want to talk in this video kind of about why you might want to do it and why it's a legitimate tool that you can use in the modern age, because there's an awful lot of debate going on in the world right now of music about how somehow you're not a good musician if you have to use the transposition key, and that's not always true. There's a lot of good reasons to do it, and it is a, as I say, a tool that only exists in the modern age. So we have no idea whether they would have used it a lot back in the old days because they never had that option, period. But I can tell you that there are good reasons why you might want to do it, and I want to show you a little bit. So I'm going to move the camera up over the piano here in just a second and walk you through a few thoughts. But I want to start by showing you something on the guitar, actually. Okay, and I don't play guitar well by any means, but I want you to understand this concept, okay? In the guitar, there's a number of different things that you'll see get employed that are kind of like a transposition function. First of all, there's the capo. And a capo is something that you put on the neck, on this fret, or however many frets up, and basically what it does is that now your each fret is a half step. So however many half steps higher you are, then you can just play chords like normal, and you're that much higher. That's something that people will do, and there are reasons to do it other than being a lousy guitar player, which I will talk about. The other thing that is pretty common these days, especially with acoustic guitars, is you'll see people actually have multiple guitars at their gigs, and one or two of them will be detuned by a half step or a whole step. And there's reasons why you would do that, because now you're lower. The whole guitar is lower than it normally would be, and you're playing chords normally, but if you form a D chord, it comes out like a C chord. So there are reasons to do that other than being a lousy guitar player. The other thing is that when you're playing electric guitar, these effects processors that you have down there with your footboard, there's actually pitch benders, and you can tell it just amplify this a half step or two half steps or three half steps lower from what I'm actually playing. Then you don't even have to detune the guitar. The string itself is playing like normal, but if you're on stage and you're playing, you can't hear the strings on your electric guitar. You just hear what's being amplified. And what's being amplified is detuned or even increased up. So why do they do that? Well, let me show you a couple of thoughts here, because this applies to the piano in its own way too. I'm a big John Denver fan, as many of you know, so I want to play something by him. He did a beautiful song called The Eagle and the Hawk. And what he did was he took an E chord, which is normally formed clear down here at the bottom of the neck, and he moves it clear up here, and he just starts kind of working it down the fretboard a little bit. So it's like, very, very cool. Well, these are really strange chords. Basically, it's like there's only one way to get this sound, and that's to play an E chord with open strings, meaning none of the other strings are being depressed. So it's a first position E, clear up here on the 3, 5, 7, the 9th fret. Well, There's no other way to do it. So if you can't sing this song in this key, which, you know, all of us are given our own voice by our creator, whatever you think that creator is, and if you're a baritone and you can't sing the song clear up in that key, what choice do you have? You can't play this lick any other way. So when John recorded it back before he had when he still had water behind his ears, he did do it in this key. But it was a few years into his touring years that he decided that it was really better for him a whole step lower. He had better power and more consistency a whole step lower. So he detuned a guitar. Detuned a guitar, meaning he tuned it a whole step lower from the very beginning, all 6 strings. And then he was able to play this song and have all the voicings and everything the way he wanted them on the guitar, but then he could sing it in a comfortable key. Okay, well, that's not because he was a lousy guitar player, it's because there's only one way to play it. Okay, that's one thought. Many of you might have heard the song My Maria by Brooks and Dunn. My Maria. That song, it's in E flat. And I am not a good enough guitar player to simulate the riff, but there's a particular guitar riff kind of pattern that they use to do that tune. And in order to do that, you have to play it in the key of E. Well, it's just really high and uncomfortable to sing it in the key of E, and the best key for Ronnie Dunn's voice was E flat. So what did they do? They detuned the guitar. That's how it had to be done, so that they could play it, because there was no other way to play that particular pattern other than in the key of E on the guitar. So if the strings are all a half step lower, then he could do it in E flat. When you go see most bands in lounges and whatnot do that song these days, the poor singer is like crossing his legs really tight and singing it in E, because if they're not detuned and they don't have a detuned guitar, then they're having to do it in that really uncomfortable key. So again, not because someone's a lousy player, they just had a reason to detune it. And the other thing I would say is, you know, you can use bar chords on a guitar. Like, for instance, here's a first position C with open strings. Okay? Now here is a C chord again, only it's barred. The chord is there, but the voicing's not there. That sound of open strings is not there. It sounds like a barred chord. So, does it work? Yes, but you might be looking for a particular sound. And so, if you're playing Best of My Love by the Eagles and you want this sound, it might be chordally correct to do it here. But you're not getting the effect that you want clear down here because of the way it's voiced. So those are just some reasons why guitar players mess around with what we constantly get called cheaters when we use the transposer function. There's good reasons to do it. So what I'm going to do now that I've kind of made my point, and I know I like to make long points, but if you like me, then you've learned to deal with that. I'm going to move the camera over here and I'm going to show you some good reasons to use it on the piano too. Okay? So I will talk to you in just a second when the camera gets moved. Okay, so let's talk about why the transposer is not only useful, but maybe a good idea on the piano. Now, first of all, I want to preface this. I don't have any problem whatsoever with people who enjoy the challenge of learning something in multiple keys. If that's something that brings you joy and that is congruent with your mission as a musician and all of that, I respect it. I think that's fabulous. I think you should do it. I am always in favor of anything that will make this fun and enjoyable for people, because that's all there really is at the end of the day anyway. Everything we want to achieve on this instrument is only because we think it's going to feel good to be able to do it. So if that's something that you enjoy, I'm not telling you you shouldn't do it. I'm just talking to those of you who feel less than and who feel like you're a musical failure because you haven't managed to learn this song in D flat, and that's the better key for you than D. I mean, D flat's a crappy key you have to play in. It's okay. But even beyond that, there are some times when it actually makes some sense to just use a transposer rather than try and play something in a different key. Give you an example. Certain kinds of licks and riffs lay out well in certain keys and don't lay out so well in other keys. Take this. I do this guy a lot. Works beautifully in C. Works beautifully in G. Works pretty well in F. I can even get away with it in D pretty well. But when I get into like A flat, it can be done, but it's not very comfortable. You know, it's not that it can't be done, but that's a really uncomfortable place to have to do it. Okay, so if I'm in a situation where I need to be pretty showy, I need to do a lot of interesting fills and stuff, and I'm a singer, and I would argue that most of the people who follow me are singers. I teach a course that's mostly about, how to accompany yourself singing these things. I'm like Billy Joel or Elton John. That was my model. So I'm not just a player, I'm a singer. And if I've got to be doing a lot of licks and fills and things whilst I'm singing and entertaining people, and the best key for me is A flat, and I want to use a lick like that, it's so much easier to just use the transposer and say, go up a half step, and then play the thing in G. This guy to go. That thing where I can move myself kind of seamlessly up and down the piano based on these little fills that I built off of the swing scale. Very, very easy for me to do in G. It would not translate to A flat. It just doesn't translate. It doesn't lay out. I can do that in G, F, and C very easily because of the way the white and black keys lay on the piano. It's a very similar fingering pattern, and I can move myself around. Bumping those up a half step to C sharp or F sharp or A flat or something, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare, and it doesn't translate very evenly, okay? And I just want to point that out. One of the reasons I wanted to show you the guitar things were that when those guys are playing, particularly when they're playing something with a lot of bar chords, a bar chord, you form it here, you can easily move that to another fret or another fret or another fret. And it's the same thing. But it's a very different experience playing in the key of F sharp than it is playing in the key of G on the piano. So especially where it's like, gosh, I've got multiple jobs I'm doing here. I'm the singer, I have to be the soloist or the filler and the entertainer and whatever. I'm going to make it as simple as I can and get in a key where I have a whole lot of depth and a whole lot of maneuverability in my hand, because I'm doing my job better that way, okay? Another one that comes to mind, New York State of Mind by Billy Joel, okay? Originally done in the key of C. Has a lot of really specific precision things. Now, that's not an exact transcription of what was on the recording, but it's similar, and it's got a lot of ornamentation of my own liking on there. I took the time to learn that years ago in the key of C like it was. Now, I just don't happen to sing high enough to put it in the key of C. I don't have enough hours in the day. It's not that I couldn't learn it in B flat where it's comfortable for me to sing. It's just, you know, we all kind of have to make a decision on how many hours in a day we have and what we want to do with those hours. And for me, when I can just go like that, and then spend more time with my wife, or you know, more time with good friends, or learn other songs, so that, because you can't get a gig if you only know 2 songs, and you know, and if I want to make sure that it's in really, really good condition to be able to play live and deliver when it needs to be delivered, you know, I just looked up and said, I don't have enough time in the day to really get this thing polished up in B flat. I could do it. I could take the time, but what other things would I then not have the time to do? And it's silly, you know. Billy Joel doesn't even do it in B. He sings it in B flat, and he doesn't even. He has them transpose his piano down. Why? Because he plays it real well in C, and don't fix what isn't broken. It would be a very different experience. I mean, like I say, it can be done. We can come down here and go. You know, and I didn't, you know, practice that at all. So it could be done. It's not impossible. But this is a huge time saver. It's a huge time saver. And all of us have lives. You know, we all have lives to live. So, again, if you get a lot of joy out of, like, learning it in B flat, then I think you should do that, because joy is what we're all about. But I don't get a lot of joy in having to transpose it to another key. Now, I want to throw this one out there. A lot of people don't realize this about me. I did a lot of that when I was younger, because all I had was an acoustic piano until I was in my mid-20s. And so if I wanted to learn a song, I had to learn how to play it a step down, because I could not sing it in those higher keys. So I've done plenty of that. But I got to tell you, a lot of songs have been recorded in the key of C or the key of D or the key of G, when it would have been more comfortable for the artist to do it in F sharp or B or whatever. But it was just so much more practical to play it in C or G that they just went ahead and did it there. And but we are not stuck with that in the modern age. That's a problem that has been solved. Another one. Here's one that's an interesting thought. Stevie Wonder has that awesome song called Superstition. And I don't have a clavinet on here, but I have a harpsichord, so I'm going to use it. Okay, that is completely done on a pentatonic scale, and it sits beautifully on just black keys. You move that down to D, it's possible, but it's a lot harder to play. It doesn't sit as well. But man, it's smooth as a baby's bottom when you're up here on just the black keys with that pentatonic. So you can bet if I'm going to do that one live, which I do sometimes, I am going to drop that with the transposer a half step or a whole step depending on what I need, and I'm going to play it here because this is just a great place to play it. It just lays out for my fingers beautifully here. And again, where I'm going to be singing over the top of it, I'm just going to make a lot fewer mistakes. I'm going to be able to be on autopilot a lot better with it here. You know, there's no reason not to use this function as a way to speed up the learning curve and free up time to either learn more songs or have other things in your life, because let's face it, one of the things that plagues musicians, particularly professional musicians, is that show business completely gobbles them up, and they're all walking around with a personal life that's in tatters and shambles all the time because of the amount of practice and whatever. It's, you know, it's hard enough on your family when you're having to play every Friday and Saturday night and all of that. But when you have something down and you can just play it there and you can put it where your voice works for it, it's silly to me, unless you really, really enjoy the process, to force yourself to learn it. And I don't feel like a lesser musician at all. I feel like I am being an efficient, smart human being, you know. There are plenty of songs, by the way, that I play in a lower key where I just play it in the lower key. You know, it just seems to work out. I would say I do almost probably 80% of the songs that I do in my gigs, and I will usually do 50 to 60 songs a night in a 4-hour set. 80% of those I have to play in a lower key than it was recorded. And out of that 80%, I probably play 75% of them, and I don't use the transposition function at all. I just play it in that key and use those chords. But that other 25%, I use the transposition function because it saves me a lot of time and hassle. And quite honestly, my voice likes a lot of times really funky keys like A flat and B natural and F sharp and D flat. Just stinky keys to have to play, especially if you're going to do any soloing or anything in. And I don't want to mess with it. I have enough jobs as it is. So I play The Entertainer by Billy Joel in F instead of G, and I don't use the transposition key. I just go. And I'm fine with that. So you have to decide where the line is for you. For me, it's how quickly does it come together. How quickly can I get this performance ready is what I go by. But everybody has different priorities and different things that they're doing it for. If you're a hobbyist, you might just sort of enjoy the journey. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. But I just want to throw it out there. There's a lot of people who use this issue as an excuse to feel like a lesser musician, and you don't have to. You're not a lesser musician. This is a tool that is available, and it is something that our predecessors would have jumped at many, many times, I'm guessing, if it had been available to them, but they didn't know any better because they didn't have it available. So what went on far more often in those days than playing everything in the wacky keys was that they just squeezed their vocal cords and sang it in the difficult key, and most of them blew their voice out. So, you know, just there's ups and downs and pros and cons with all of this, but I do not have a problem with it. I do not think that it makes you a better or worse musician to use it or not. It's just a tool, and I wanted to get that out there as an opinion because there's some of you who send me messages feeling really down on yourself for this, and I think that's a no. I think that is a nonsense, non-issue. Non-issue. People who make a big deal out of this are just looking for something to make a big deal out of. So that's my opinion, and I will defend it for the rest of my life. Fiddle players, same thing. If you're playing country music, the way that the fiddle lays, if you're going to do it in any key other than like A, G, or D, then you're going to have to detune that fiddle or else it won't work because they've got to have open strings in certain ways. So, you know, this is... Every instrument has its cheats. This is the piano's cheat in the modern age, and there's nothing wrong with it because it's not a cheat. It's a tool for efficiency and accuracy. Okay, I'm going to get out of here, and thank you for listening to my rant. I hope that this has helped some of you feel a little better about using the technology that's in front of you and not thinking ill of yourself, okay? It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you or that you're lazy or that you're anything. You're just being smart, and you're using the tool in front of you. I'm Piano Man Steve. Remember, if you're not having fun when you're making music, you're doing it wrong, and I'll see you on the next video.